Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Ambassador Tai. Senator Wyden and I are in strong agreement about how critical it is for us to step up our game in trade, particularly in terms of dealing with China. And I appreciate the opportunity for us to visit with you about that here today, Ambassador. The President's 2021 trade policy agenda opens with two objectives. One, ending the COVID-19 pandemic, and two, strengthening the economy. Significant progress is being made on the first, with record vaccine development thanks to the Operation Warp Speed and continued efforts by the Biden administration to get shots in the arms. Unfortunately, with regard to the second objective, progress is disappointing. Last month, the United States added only 266,000 jobs, far less than the 1 million jobs that economists predicted. President Biden's response is that we have a long way to go. Yes, we do. In fact, more Americans are out of work at the moment than during the worst point in the Great Recession. Of course, Americans have crossed unimaginable distances before, and they will do so again. But why counsel Americans to be patient? It's not in their nature. What we need to do right now is to speed up the journey for everyone by fully reopening our economy and executing an ambitious and sound trade policy. According to President Biden's trade agenda, exports facilitate greater productivity and wages. In fact, President Obama's White House determined that every $1 billion in increased annual exports supports between 5,300 and 7,300 jobs. If the Biden administration wants a worker-centered trade policy, then the logical and only sensible course is to adopt a trade policy that creates as many high-paying jobs as possible. That kind of successful trade policy requires at least three components. First, enforcement must be a priority. The trade agenda notes there will be comprehensive enforcement of the labor and environmental obligations in our free trade agreements. I support that because America's business, workers, and farmers need to compete on a level playing field. We can do that and also stand up for them by challenging other market access barriers at the same time. Enforcement in these areas is complementary, not exclusive. Make no mistake, there is a great deal to enforce. For example, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, the USMCA, contains groundbreaking market access commitments. These commitments are particularly important to our farmers who have faced a decline in the demand from restaurants, school systems, and hotel customers. We must make sure American farmers get the access to our trading partners to which they are entitled. But the story on enforcement must become better. An important U.S. tariff rate quotas case against Canada remains stalled in the USMCA process. It is time to see progress on it, or the United States must proceed with a dispute settlement panel so that American farmers, ranchers, and businesses can enjoy the benefits they bargained for under the agreement. Mexico is adopting a host of measures that undermine our agricultural rights, including restrictions on biotech crops, glyphosate, and unreasonable food packaging labels. Ambassador Tai, I encourage you to press for action on these barriers at the meeting of the USMCA Free Trade Commission later this month. If our partners should refuse, you must use the enforcement tools at your disposal. The second component of an effective trade policy is negotiating new rules and market access opportunities. To that end, I support the Biden administration's call to work with allies. Yet the President's trade agenda is silent on whether we will continue to negotiate with the United Kingdom and Kenya. I encourage you to work with the United Kingdom, one of the United States' oldest allies, and with Kenya, which can serve as a replicable model for future trade deals in a country where China has failed to get an FTA, and that will also establish our commitment over China's to the people of Africa. Furthermore, we must deepen our engagement in the Asia-Pacific, or risk losing U.S. allies there to China's predations. While I understand you believe the Trans-Pacific Partnership is dated, I see value in an agreement with new disciplines, including on digital trade. However, that means we must start thinking about how to modernize the TPP or what other structures we can use for U.S. engagement in the Asia-Pacific. We cannot simply take a timeout from the region. Last month, Japan ratified the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is China's model for what trading relationships in the region should look like. In the absence of U.S. leadership in the region, our allies will have to look elsewhere. If the United States is to pursue a worker-centered trade policy, we need to be mindful that American workers lose when China writes the rules. The final but most important component of a successful trade policy is consultation. The Supreme Court noted 60 years ago that the President is strongest when he acts pursuant to an authorization from Congress and is potentially powerless when he acts in defiance. The administration must be strong when it comes to trade policy, and that requires a close partnership between Congress and the U.S. Trade Representative. We recently had a test of that partnership, the administration's decision to support a waiver to the intellectual property protections in the WTO TRIPS agreement. The WTO TRIPS agreement was approved by Congress. The law says Congress's approval can only be withdrawn, quote, if and only if, end quote, Congress enacts a joint resolution to that effect. Last summer, during the height of the pandemic, both houses of Congress declined to act on such a resolution. Yet without any consultation with this committee, you announced via tweet that the administration unilaterally supports waiving the patent obligations of the TRIPS agreement. Chancellor Merkel of Germany asserts the problem with vaccine distribution is not patents, but manufacturing capacity and production standards. Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, said the decision will categorically create more problems for vaccine distribution. He added that it will disincentivize anyone else in the future from taking a big risk, like Pfizer did, laying the groundwork for classic moral hazard. Iconic American innovators like Bill Gates have also said the decision will not advance vaccine distribution. In short, these observers assert a TRIPS waiver will undermine the very objective on which I said the administration showed some progress, ending the pandemic. Conversely, Vladimir Putin, in fact, supports this decision to pursue a waiver. Neither did it surprise me that a bureau chief for one of China's propaganda outlets replied to your tweet by asserting that global pressure works. You may, of course, have your own good reasons, but to date, you have not offered an adequate explanation. You will need to hear more on this subject from me and my colleagues. Ambassador Tai, I know that you like the expression that USTR can walk, chew gum, and play chess at the same time. And what we need is a USTR that can enforce, negotiate, and consult at the same time. The American people and members of Congress, including myself, are counting on you to prove that is the case. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to the testimony from our witness.